Well, there was very little in it, so we should be in for an excellent race.
Alrighty then, time for race 2 here at Thruxton, and where once again Bieler is on the pole ahead of Menu, Bintcliffe and Plato, so the Audis definitely have the qualifying speed, meanwhile I seem to have the race speed. So Tim Harvey was 9th and Calvin Burt completes the top 10 in the Volvo. Hopefully this time, unlike the previous race, I will not be involved in a multi-car shunt, like I was to start with. So, it's time for race number 2 here at Thruxton. Red lights are on. Try not to get too much wheel spin. And it's go for race 2 here at Thruxton. And the top 7 seem to be ganging up on each other. Gonna try and move out of the way this time, in case if there are any sudden dive bombs. I move over to the left hand side, making sure I do manage to avoid the chaos. Fortunately, no chaos this time around, as I now immediately propel myself up into the 4th position and almost go straight off track as a result of me having that wiggle whilst I was right behind the top 4. And now I can see one of the Audis right up ahead of me, really hoping I can manage to clear him before we get into the chicane, because if we don't, then it is fair to say something could potentially happen here. I hope it doesn't, but something could happen. Anyways, we'll wait and see. Okay, dive down to the outside and up on the inside. Had to cut the second part of the corner there. I don't think I would have been able to rejoin the track otherwise without spinning. I keep it all straight. Obviously a much cleaner start this time around compared to what happened last time. And up into 2nd position, immediately closing in on Menu in his blue and yellow Renault Laguna. I shoot up the inside and I already take the lead. Taking the lead to officially begin what should be another domination run the way I see it. And now we can simply just press on and hope that everything else is pretty much on cruise control, the way I see it. So Menu is right behind me now, but that's only because I just recently passed him. And now, yeah, I really wasn't gonna perfect the kink there whilst I'm trying to at least keep a hold of my car. And as much as I really don't like Thruxton in this game, it is much easier to get around this track in the dry than it is in the wet. Because when you're driving this course in the wet, you're basically just asking for a disaster to happen. But so far at this stage of the season, at least when it comes to the dry variation of Thruxton, I can definitely say you will have a much easier time of getting to grips with this course, even though the one thing this course basically reminds me of is the old Hockenheimring circuit. You know, basically the one where you were pretty much going flat out down the straights and you more or less had to brake so suddenly from about 200 miles an hour or so, basically for about probably 3 or 4 chicanes that were basically added to the track following Jim Clark's death, who was effectively, who at the time of his death at the Hockenheim Ring, when he was killed in a Formula 2 crash, presumably caused by a mechanical failure, but they don't know for sure. But yeah, so basically, Jim Clark was killed at Hockenheim Ring during a Formula 2 race, and ultimately they added chicanes to at least try and slow the cars down. And as ironic as it might be, they used the old Hockenheim Ring circuit from basically 1977 up until 2001. At least that's when F1 had officially raced on the original Hockenheim Ring circuit. Even though the very first F1 race that was held at Hockenheim Ring happened in 1970, when Joachim Rindt and Jackie Ickx were basically battling tooth and nail for the whole race, and ultimately it ironically decided the championship as well. Joachim Rindt at the end of the day was the victor on that day, and what's even more ironic about it is that it was quite literally the last of only 6 wins that the audacious Austrian had. And it is also fair to say he was Austria's first world champion, first of 2 in fact, and the second, of course, to what many F1 analysts will easily know, was Niki Lauda, who effectively won the championship 3 times over the course of him having 2 career stints. Niki Lauda, a triple world champion in F1 of course, winning the championship in 1975, 77 and 84. And it's also fair to say that Niki Lauda also won the first ever race that was held on the original Hockenheim Ring circuit, at least when the original layout was in a year-to-year contract. And then I think it was 2001 when they stopped using the original Hockenheim Ring circuit, and then it was from 2002 onwards when they changed the course layout. And let me tell you, from someone who has driven around Hockenheim Ring hundreds, if not thousands of times, whilst playing through a mobile game called Real Racing 3, I can definitely tell you the Hockenheim Ring GP circuit in its current configuration, it is one fast racetrack, if you want my opinion. I mean, the current Hockenheim Ring circuit is definitely a fast one. And it is fair to say that for many years Hockenheim Ring has unquestionably been beloved by fans, myself included, because Hockenheim Ring over the years has treated us to many great races over the years. Most recently the Wet Dry Carnage Fest that was the German Grand Prix of 2019, and unfortunately Hockenheim Ring has not officially been on the F1 schedule ever since. And it is a great shame to say that neither Hockenheim Ring nor the Nürburgring are officially on the F1 schedule because I guess, for the moment at least, F1 just isn't bothered about racing in Germany. Well, either that or Germany just simply cannot provide the funds necessary to at least, you know, create the money they need for one of their 2 Grand Prix venues to be opened. And the connection between Hockenheimring and the Nürburgring is, for many years F1 used to race on the old Nordschleife until 1976, when from 77 onwards to 01 they moved it over to Hockenheimring. They had returned to the Nürburgring GP circuit numerous times, in fact. A history with F1 and the Nürburgring GP circuit officially dating as far back as 1984, when the new, vastly improved and vastly much safer Grand Prix circuit had officially played host to only the 2nd European Grand Prix ever held. The first 3 European Grand Prix were held for 3 consecutive years from 1983 to 85, when they had 2 races at Brands Hatch and 1 race at the Nürburgring. But the German Grand Prix, however, remained basically on the F1 circuit, or calendar, if you will, up until, what was it? 2014? Well, there were a couple of occasions where the German Grand Prix was moved over to the Nürburgring, but a majority of German Grand Prix venues at the time were officially held at Hockenheimring. And it is a great shame to say that on the F1 calendar they've not officially gone back to Germany because, well, you'd be amazed on how many Mercedes supporters there are in Germany. And I think knowing that Audi will be coming on board in F1 for, what, 2025, 26? I think that's when they're planning on doing it, but anyways, yeah. It's a couple of years down the line. Audi will be officially coming into F1, which officially means basically so will VW, because Audi technically is a VW brand. And I would honestly think that will probably give the FIA enough encouragement to bring back the German Grand Prix at some point. I really don't care if it's at Hockenheimring or the Nürburgring, but I'm quite sure under the circumstances they will inevitably bring back the German Grand Prix at some point, now that we know Audi is going to be on board. I mean, it'll certainly be a suitable replacement for the French Grand Prix. And well, to be completely honest, even though F1 recently returned to the Paul Ricard circuit, I can tell you from personal experience, the racing action overall, it's been quite mediocre. I mean, except for that one good race they had in 2021, which I will say was a good race because I did watch that race myself, coincidentally, but overall, I do understand why many people aren't intrigued with the Paul Ricard circuit, and to be completely honest, I really don't blame them. Although I still think they should have gone back to Magny Cours. Although personally, I don't know what probably is the best venue France can serve up for an F1 race. But anyways, yeah. I mean, if F1 does manage to get back to Germany in the future, then I would say either Hockenheimring or Nürburgring will no doubt be a good venue for them to go back to once Germany does manage to get some money in its pocket. I can definitely say either venue would be a good one. IMO. Anyways, whilst I've just been ranting on about the future of F1 and essentially a history of the German Grand Prix between both Hockenheimring and the Nürburgring, essentially, I, along with many other F1 fans, would really like to see the German Grand Prix come back onto the calendar. Or circuit, if you are a NASCAR fan. Well, more specifically schedule, but you know. I just like to be specific with certain terms. Anyways, 7 laps to go here at Thruxton. It's fair to say, since I took the lead in this race, I've pretty much controlled it. And I'm now closing in on one of the Audis, who seems to be fighting with one of the Peugeots there. And well, I'm going to make this easier for Tim by just forcing him off track. Probably didn't need to do that, but either way, it at least proves I'm not a pushover. And these are just the sorts of moves you have to make in this game just to essentially prove that you are capable of pulling off those drastic measures. I've had a couple of spins and crashes in this race up to this point, but the way I see it, this race is going a hell of a lot smoother than the first one did. And that's just coming from me alone, because I don't even think I could have expected to see how smooth this race was truly going. But anyways, overlapping the Honda now and closing in on, I think, Jason Plato. I think I gave him some room there, but I had to force him to the tight side so he would let me through. Glad to say there were no incidents going on there. Also, I should probably mention, I'm not going to be watching that many F1 races this year because, well, I think everything in the media is just becoming a bit too, you know, a bit too much for my brain to handle, and well, because I'm a university student, then I really cannot, you know, afford these pointless distractions when I have to think about the assessments that lay ahead. And now, overlapping menu. That pretty much goes to show I've now lapped every competitor unless you would account for the Honda that is in front. I think that's James Thompson, who must be running in second now. Yep, I can see a 10 in the mirrored direction, so that does have to be James Thompson, of course. And if there's any word I can use to describe the handling of this car right here and now, I would say the handling is beautiful. And I can definitely say I made the correct choice to switch to a car that would be lighter than the Audi, and a car that I can say will allow me to actually, you know, throw the car into the corners. I mean, it just feels like I can actually handle it and not have to think about, you know, shifting the weight for better traction when I'm going through the corners. Also, yeah, I know I keep reverting back to the F1 subject, but another thing that was recently in the news is Ford are actually coming back into F1. And this is quite literally the first time since, what, the early 2000s they've actually decided to come back into F1. And to be completely honest, because I've always been an ardent Ford supporter... Yep, okay, that was ugly. Well, good to know the rest of the field is a lap down, so... Oh, and there was some contact there. I think it might have been contact there between Thompson and Hoy in the Honda and the Ford Mondeo. Although I'm going to assume Thompson was trying to put him a lap down, so... You know, to me at least, this is very beneficial, because whilst I can say these guys are fighting for whatever positions they can get, I'm basically just out in front at the moment and already building up quite a sizable lead. Just to quite literally begin the campaign. Oh, that was rough. And I think I just spun one of the Peugeots off into the infield. I'm not sure if I would or wouldn't take the blame for that, but either way, it wasn't intentional. Oh, bollocks, okay. It's alright, it's fine. I've got it back under control. I thought for sure I was going to lose it, but I did manage to keep a hold of it. Also, I just realised something. I think if I was having this level of domination in the first race, I could have very well lapped every other competitor in the first race if it wasn't for that first lap crash I was involved in with the back markers. I'm quite sure I could have potentially overlapped the field in both races, because my domination in the second race has just been a showing sign to say that this is definitely a better car for me to drive than the Audi ever was. Because it feels like a race car I can actually drive, and it also feels like a car I can immediately fit into. Anyways, final lap. And closing in once again on both Derek Warwick and my teammate Calvin Burt. A little bit of contact there, as I'm trying to overlap the two whilst they are no doubt fighting for position probably. Or unless Calvin is just trying to get past Derek. They could be fighting for position, but I really don't know. Anyways. Point is, they're racing hard. I'm waiting behind them for my moment to strike. And then hopefully I can manage to avoid getting myself into trouble. As I shoot down the inside, heading through the chicane now. One corner left. And there we go, it is 6 in a row for me and the Volvo.
The new Volvo driver is really storming this season, and another victory moves the team further up in the Constructors' Championship. Here's how the race finished.
Okay, so it was Menu who wound up finishing second in the end of that race, ahead of James Thompson, Jason Plato fourth, followed by Gabriella Tarquini in the other Honda. Then it was Leslie in the first of the two Nissans, followed by the two Audis. And then Calvin Burt finishes 9th, and Will Hoy scores yet another point in the Ford Mondeo, so I can definitely give a shout out to Ford now for scoring 2 points. And Vauxhall is now the only team that's yet to score, and Tim Harvey finished last in the end of that race.
Now, after 2 great races, let's see the championship table. The new Volvo driver is in the lead at this stage. Can he keep it up, I wonder?
Honestly, Tiff, I think at this stage I probably will be able to keep a hold of my points lead. But anyway, saving the game, and obviously replacing the previous Showdown files I had. And yes, I shall do that. A 25-point lead now in the championship over Menu. 3 venues down and still 9 to go. And that is the end of quarter 1 as I end it with a clean sweep, winning the first 6 races. And now we shall move on to the second quarter, which begins at Brands Hatch. Also, we unlock a cheat code, CM Upside. But anyways, onwards to Brands Hatch for the start of quarter 2.